of Osceola County's scheduled school bell times for the 26-27 school year workshop for Tuesday, July 29th, 2015. It will be led by Scott Noble, our Chief Operating Officer, but I'll hand it over to Dr. Shanoff to get us started.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Board members, in a prior legislative cycle, the legislature adopted a new rule that would change school start times to no earlier than 8:30 for high schools. Subsequently, in the last legislative cycle, there was a modification that was made that allowed school districts to do their own study of the community's wishes relative to school start times, and then provide the Department of Education with the appropriate rationale as to whether or not they would change start times or would not change start times. To that end, because school start times, a lot of it is driven by our transportation team, Mr. Noble is going to go over the requirements for the school district and how we need to address school bell times, receive community input, make a recommendation back to the board, and then follow up with the DOE. I wanted to get this process started earlier rather than later. This doesn't need to be done until the middle of next year. However, I feel as though we need to get this process moving because there is a community input component that is vital, and we will be using some of the town hall style discussions that I've had previously. We're going to be using those sessions as one of those opportunities to garner input, along with maximizing the use of Parent Square to make sure that everybody has plenty of opportunity to have their voice heard. But at this time, I'd like to turn it over to Mr. Noble, who can kind of take us through the process, where we are right now, and how we're going to move forward.
Thank you, Dr. Shanoff. Good afternoon, board. So you have the PowerPoint in front of you there. So first, we're just going to kind of go over what we're going to discuss today. So we're going to discuss the requirements, what our current bell times are, documentation of the strategies of implementation, impacts related to implementing potential new start times, as well as unintended consequences that we may face due to changing our bell times, and then next steps. So just as an introduction and overview, so this became effective on July 1st of this year. And the purpose of Senate Bill 296 was really to standardize bell times across middle and high schools. And the bill also aims to gather input from the community about health, safety, and academic impacts of sleep deprivation and the benefits to students for a later school start time. So the bill does require school boards to comply with specific start time regulations through reporting to DOE, and that would be part of this process. So to kind of go over just some of the studies through the CDC about insufficient sleep in middle school and high school students. So the CDC notes that 58% of middle school students and 73% of high school students report getting insufficient sleep on school nights. And then students who do not have enough sleep also have a higher risk of many health or behavioral problems, either at home or at school. So the requirements of Senate Bill 296 are really as follows, and they have to be in effect by June 1st of 2026. So we have to report to the Department of Education the start times for our elementary, middle, and high schools. Also, we have to document strategies that we've considered to implement later start times for both our middle and high school students, including the number of board meetings, public hearings, and opportunities, like Dr. Shanoff mentioned, for parent and community input. Also, we need to describe the impact of implementing the school start time requirements, including the potential financial impact to the district, and then the identified unintended consequences to the district, students and community by implementing these start time requirements. So currently, our start times here are listed, and this Senate bill basically establishes that middle school students may not start before 8 and high school students before 8:30 in the morning. And currently, elementary is starting at 8:20, middle school and K-8 at 9:30, and then high school on our first tier at 7:15. So in order to kind of play out some scenarios and see how we might be able to implement this within the school district, we came up with 3 different options and ran those options within our routing software and transportation. So the first scenario that we ran was moving high school to the elementary time and then just adjusting it at the start time by 10 minutes, and moving it from 8:20 to 8:30. The second scenario was to keep all of the current times the way they are, but then shift middle to elementary, high to middle, and then elementary to the high school time. And then the third scenario that we ran was moving from a 3-tier system to a 2-tier system. So elementary and middle K-8 starting at 8 o'clock, and then high school starting at 9:30. So part of the process, like I stated earlier, is documenting some of the strategies for implementation. And these were just the things that we kind of discussed was board meetings, board workshops, surveys, parent square, social media, and then our community outreach sessions. When we started looking at the impacts related to implementing the new start times, these are some of the things that we discussed and we felt that would impact our students and community. So increased number of bus routes to transport our students, increased number of bus drivers and bus attendants. We would need to purchase more buses actually to meet the request. Students will face later afternoon drop-off times for high school. We have more buses operating on the roadways and obviously impacting a higher cost to the district. Some of our spare buses that we have would have to be converted to actual route buses currently that are now set to either be surplused or are just out of commission. And then fuel costs for diesel and then the diesel emissions fluid would increase due to the additional number of buses operating on the roadway at that time. So going into some of our scenarios, on this next slide here, you're going to see this is our current bell schedule for 25-26 school year. So the way we have it right now, we have 289 bus routes. As we run the software, we have 0 late arrivals and we have 0 additional buses that we need with our current routes. Now, when we're looking at routing all of these different scenarios, it's going to be impacted by time, distance, and capacity on the school buses, as well as, if you've driven in Osceola County, we have geographical factors in there, as well as construction, on many of our roads. So that impacts, obviously, our arrival times.
Can I ask a question
Yes.
on how it determines the number of late arrivals? Because, I think we still have late arrivals on this tiered system in our current capacity. So how does the software
So if
garner that?
everything is perfect, then the software is stating, okay, with these number of buses, you should be okay to be delivered on time within the window.
Okay.
Yes. All right, so scenario 1, when you look at the graph here, you'll see the red line. That was our baseline. That's our current bell schedule. And then the overlay are the new tier. So again, a 3-tier system. When we look at this, we would have estimated 300 buses on the road, so an increase of 11 buses, but we'd have 85 late arrivals and 38 schools that would be affected by this scenario. The additional cost to the district would be $847,000 for operating those buses on a yearly basis. And when you're looking at this, when you see on the left side of the graph is AM, the right side is PM. So where you see that far drop off on the very last tier on the left in the AM, those little drop offs towards the end, those are all your late arrivals. So those are students who are coming late to school beyond the bell time. Now, potentially with this scenario, we already have late students, so what would happen is we would have to add more buses or shift the routes around to make sure that all of our students are on time. So it's doable this way, but you're gonna have late students.
Is there a way to, does the software allow you to put, like if you added an additional 20 buses, what it's going to calculate for late arrivals and all of that? So that's how you would determine
Correct.
how we could eliminate that.
Or shifting where the buses are going at what time, so it's taking the routing team the actual time to actually go in and manipulate each of the routes to ensure that you don't have any late arrivals. All right, so that is, that's the first scenario. Again, 3 tiers, and just shifting high school to that 8:30 time. When we go to scenario 2, what this does, we're then putting elementary on the first tier, middle school at 8:20, and then high school on the last tier. So here you can see this is going to take only additional 5 buses, 294, but you can see the impacts to the number of late arrivals and the number of schools affected by this scenario. So you have students who are significantly getting to school significantly later or home. When we're running the software, we are even seeing students who are getting home at 8:30 at night. So we would have to correct that to use this scenario. And even though there's only 5 additional buses, that's still a cost of $385,000 to our school district to operate those buses. Scenario 3 is our 2-tier scenario. And so this is moving elementary and middle to the 8 o'clock time, and then moving high school to 9:30. So again, this has a similar effect to scenario 2. It has 145 late arrivals and 55 schools affected, but there's 385 buses that we would have to use to run this route. So 96 additional buses on the road with almost $7.4 million in additional cost to run the 2-tier system. So on this next slide, we just go over, again, kind of some of the things that we had discussed on those previous slides with just the financial cost to the district. Changing the start times will create additional costs, as we can see. We will need additional buses to combat all the construction and the different things that are happening out on the roadways to ensure that we have on-time arrivals, and obviously new additional bus drivers and attendants to go along with those routes that we're implementing. So our current buses that we have, you can see we have 365 total buses, but we have 55 of those buses that are either out of service or they're going to be surplus to keep the age of our fleet down to an average 5 years of age. So we have currently 307 active buses that are delivering students. So
The additional operating cost, does that include the purchase of the buses for each of those scenarios? Or is it just operating the system?
Just operating
So that
cost.
doesn't include purchasing the additional
Right,
buses we
right.
need?
Mhm. We're looking at roughly $77,000 a year to operate that bus.
And how much does a bus cost to purchase?
Roughly $160,000. Randy, can you correct me if I'm wrong? 160? Yeah. More, potentially more, $10,000, $12,000 more if we have a lift added to that bus or special equipment. All right, so some of the unintended consequences for the new school start times, if they were implemented, at the high school level, athletics could be impacted. They would run later into the evenings, or potentially we would have to run practices in the morning to combat that later arrival and later dismissal. The later dismissal times for high school students may impact their after-school jobs or activities. Potentially, we have younger siblings. Now they're getting home before their older siblings who normally would get home first. It may impact parents' work schedules. Also, before and after-school care could see significant challenges and increases. And then we may have elementary students walking to the bus stops or to school earlier in the morning and in the dark at certain times during the school year. So our next steps here is we're just going to continue to analyze our routing data, see if there's any efficiencies that we can find within it. It takes roughly a team of 4 or 5 a week and a half to 2 weeks to run the data, to clean it up, and to see if we can alter anything. And then, obviously, as Dr. Shanoff had mentioned, we are going to be informing parents one way today, but then through some of our community outreach sessions, and then giving them the opportunity to provide that input to the start times, and then reporting this to DOE by June 1st of this next year.
Mr. Noble, do we already have dates set up for that parent communication and input, or?
Through Dr. Shanoff's sessions, I believe Dana just sent those out yesterday.
The other thing is for the consequences, our staff and teachers, the ones that have 2 jobs, caregiving their kids and all that, that will affect greatly.
Correct.
Can I just wait, are you done? Are you done? Okay. Can I just clarify for my own edification and for the public what we're actually deciding here? So based on the statute, technically speaking, the mandate is that middle schools don't start earlier than 8 a.m. and high schools do not begin earlier than 8:30 a.m., except that we can deem to be in compliance if we receive parent input, community input. So we could technically keep the times as they are as long as we comply by having the communications and input sessions, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so we can just keep this the way it is, potentially.
Yes.
Sorry, thank you.
So everything that's been asked, fantastic question. I want to clarify that school districts have not been asking, they didn't ask for the change. The change came from the legislature. It wasn't something that came up through the schools. We agree that schools start very early. There's no doubt about it. High school starts very early in the morning. High school around the country has started very early in the morning for generations. So the idea of high school start times being early is not new. The unintended consequences, though, I think are the biggest concern. I think that everybody agrees that high school starts very early in the morning. Asking students to kind of ramp up their cognitive function that early is quite difficult. Where it becomes logistically challenging is when you tell a parent that you can't drop off your student till 30 minutes before the first bell, when that parent has to get to work by a certain time. And I think that given how much traffic we already have within our county, I think that we could be exacerbating the problem significantly if we were to explore some of these other scenarios, which is something that we know that we're actually working to solve with the opening of Transportation East. So trying to localize our hub services in transportation is designed to reduce windshield time and take our buses off the street as much as we possibly can and find efficiency in routing. So we'll do our due diligence, and it's not necessarily just me posing the question and collecting that information at the town halls. We will have an opportunity for all parents to participate in providing their feedback. But we do want to make sure that they're aware of the impacts. So we'll make sure that this presentation just doesn't sit within kind of board docs, but we get this out there and make sure that everybody's aware of what the school district is studying over the next year and asking for public input.
I have a question. Is there a target number that we have to hit for parent input, or is it just input in general?
Just input in general.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
And
you're still going, right?
I got one more, yeah. With our ESE changes, and we've consolidated to the hubs, how would this affect that with the transportation cost? Was that looked at? Because I know, like, we've had to make some adjustments with that, and so that's included in these costs?
We've added additional routes this year to cover those hub routes.
Yeah.
So we've added an additional 26, I believe it is, this year. So potentially the numbers are there, but we would have to really run them very closely just to see exactly how that's going to impact, because it will have an impact.
Okay, thank you. I know we don't have little buzzers, so it's difficult to. So thank you for those questions. In addition to what Board Member Garcia mentioned with regards to teachers who may be working additional jobs, I wonder, are we also getting input from our high school students? Because I know a lot of them, we are, yes, okay, perfect.
The feedback will come from all stakeholder groups. We'll be eliciting feedback from everybody.
Thank you.
Any further questions? All right, seeing none, I think we're